Right. Recording. Okay, so reading the question. Explain who you are and what you do in the industry. My name is Jack Higgins. I'm a liquid drum and bass producer and DJ by the name Pola. And a couple of years ago, I formed an independent liquid drum and bass record label to promote and release my own music as well as music from a handful of known friends of mine. And now we've moved on to international signings to young and new producers. Next question. A little introduction on how you ended up not only producing D&B but also becoming part of an up-and-coming D&B label. Well, I've explained the label already. It was a platform for me to release my music, and then branched from there. A little introduction on how you ended up producing. I started in college, like through further education, higher education, and just grew fond of it. Realised I could make music without relying on others. Could do it as a solo thing, and just sort of progressed. Heard drum and bass music from a few elder family members, like some cousins of mine, and was like, oh, really like this. I'm going to try making this. Sort of spouted from there. How important do you feel sampling is to drum and bass? I feel like drum and bass, in a nutshell, is based not currently based, but the foundations of drum and bass are based entirely on sampling. And without sampling and the use of samplers, you wouldn't have drum and bass what it is. Obviously, with its coming from hardcore into jungle, both very heavily sample based forms of music, and its evolution into drum and bass now from jungle still heavily features samples, resampling, drum breaks, bass lines, like vocal samples and vocal stabs. I feel like without samplers or access to samplers, if you removed that from the equation, drum and bass would sound a million miles away from what it does today, but also would never have happened in the first place, would have never become a thing. What would you say is the most important piece of technology, excluding sampling, to juggle drum and bass? Jungle drum and bass. Nice typing there. And why? Turntables. No. Yeah, turntables. I put turntables. It's a basis of sampling, isn't it? It's prior to sampling, beat juggling, samples and breaks, and yeah, it was sort of predominantly featured heavily in house music. It still had its place in drum and bass and jungle when it started, and I think for a lot of people, where they found their samples were from finding records in shops, crate digging, and sampling tunes and sampling records. So yeah, you need the sampler, but without the record to sample, then you can't sample it. So you need the record, you need the turntable. Would you say drum and bass? Hang on. What methods of technology are most important and influential to you? Technology, broadly, my computer. It's a cheap answer there, but yeah, my computer. Everything we do is all digital now. It's all we don't use any hardware elements in our tracks. It would be lovely if we could, because it's an area of music production that we haven't had the opportunities to branch out into as often as solo producers, and when me and you produce, but for me personally, hardware is something that I haven't had enough access to, and I'd like to be able to incorporate like analog synthesizers and digital synthesizers as opposed to emulated synthesizers. And influential has to be definitely synthesizers. I want to be able to use analog synthesizers because we use Reason, which is essentially just a big set. It's a big rack emulator. So using rack synths and Eurorack stuff would be real fun to do. Would you say drum and bass itself has influenced technology of any kind, and if so, what? I wouldn't say drum and bass specifically has influenced one thing, but I feel like drum and bass has been part of a massive aspect of the larger picture of digital music, that without digital music and music production, technology wouldn't be what it is today. So if you took away, for example, I think all you'd need to take away is probably house, drum and bass, dubstep. I'd definitely throw that in there, with the fact that dubstep literally started in one place on the planet, circumnavigated the globe, and came back and sounded completely different. The influences it had, and the influences it gave other people, and the influences it took on. Yeah, I'd say drum and bass. Not without drum and bass in the world, I don't feel like it would be easy to pinpoint the differences you'd see in technology and in society. But I feel like without drum and bass, society and without drum and bass and other aspects of electronic music, society and technology would be different, massively different. Some people think that drum and bass is all inspired by technology. Is this true, or does society play a part in drum and bass? Massively so. It's not just, oh, we've got this new piece of kit, can we make a new sound? It's for the majority of people, drum and bass, it is literally, it's not about the technology, it's not about any of that stuff. It's the aesthetic, it's the little family around drum and bass. It's a bit of a niche market, so there's always, no matter where you go in the world, there's always drum and bass heads somewhere, and they sort of congregate and they have that little family. And that, I think, there's a very tight-knit community within the drum and bass scene. It's a very loving, sharing, helpful community. So I feel like, yeah, drum and bass has created its own society, which fuels drum and bass to then expand and progress through the time. It doesn't just sit there and do what it's always done. Like, for example, what I personally, I mean, from my perspective, what house music has done. It's found that one thing that's really, really good, and it's stuck with it. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I feel like drum and bass turned around and they were like, yeah, this is a good thing, let's stick with it. A couple of years later, right, let's expand upon that and advance and progress onto something somewhat different. Not massively, but I feel like there's more distinct visible changes in drum and bass music than there have been in house over the past, I don't know, 20 years or so. The next question. Where's the next question? Okay. In comparison, what do you think society brings to drum and bass? Do you believe it has played a part in the influence of drum and bass? And how does this compare to the influence of technology? I think, talking sort of in an even more niche market, subgenres sort of thing, but, or not even, no, I think drum and bass has helped fuel the rebirth of the teenager that we sort of lost in the start of the new millennium. You had it in the 90s, you had the teenagers going out to acid house raves and in the middle of fields and shit, and now you've got that again, and it's not in the middle of fields, it's in London's largest venues like the O2 Brixton, and they're selling out. They're not club nights anymore, they're parties. They're literally just go there, have fun, listen to some brilliant music, and have a good time. And I feel like without there's a handful of people in the industry that have forced that upon the drum and bass community, but without, I feel like, that lack of involvement towards young people in society around the turn of the millennium, I feel like without that element, that they wouldn't have been spurred on to push it at all. So yeah, I feel like it's society has had a massive impact on drum and bass when it comes to its younger audiences, its teenage audiences, and I feel like drum and bass has had enough impact from society itself to be able to create its own, whether it be positive or negative aspects from society. So whether it's the inclusion or into popular culture, or whether it's the well, the recent inclusion into popular culture, or whether it's the it's been its own thing and kept itself set aside from every other genre. It's so hard to compare drum and bass to any other genre. You've got trance, techno, house. They're all sort of under one umbrella family, where they came from a very similar root, and not a lot has happened or changed. But I feel like drum and bass has pushed its thing and stuck with it, because that they know that's. I think drum and bass just as a entity knows that that's what makes drum and bass what it is. It's that unique sound. It's that difference. It's the comparability or the incompatibility. But yeah, hopefully that's.